network.
Mosques are business centers where terrorists hide, where plans are hatched to destroy our culture, our heritage, our religion.
Islamophobia and racism are fueling the immigration debate in Italy.
We are a part of this land. We are of a foreign origin, but we are Italians.
Al Jazeera World.
As China undergoes profound changes, competition for jobs becomes a struggle to survive. Two graduates fresh out of college seek employment in a city of 8 million people. Now entering the real world, the graduates become increasingly desperate and begin to question their college-trained talents. It's a time of hope and frustration for the workforce of the future. Faces of China at this time on Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera focused as the troops pulled out. We focused when barriers were built and walls came down.
Women have been voted into parliament.
On the raising of one voice and the silencing of another.
Somebody knew he was coming.
We focused when bombs fell.
Potter, go.
And when Gaza stood alone. Throughout the Middle East, we focus on news and documentaries that matter to you. Al Jazeera, television that truly inspires.
Volunteer tourism is booming in Cambodia, with more and more foreigners helping out in the country's orphanages and schools. But with claims of mismanagement and corruption, are these projects doing more harm than good? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Decoding the stories that shape our views.
Those images catapulted the story back into the headlines.
Everything that I thought would be easy was hard, and everything that I thought would be hard was easy.
From mainstream media to consumer-led advertising.
There are other options.
What's at the front line of global media?
This has been reported worldwide.
With a major media angle to it.
Comparing news and challenging views. The Listening Post, at this time on Al Jazeera.
This is Al Jazeera.
A warm welcome to the News Hour, live from Doha. I'm Veronica Pedrosa. From Al Jazeera news centres in Doha and Washington, D.C., these are the main global stories. New calls from behind the barricades. Anti-government protesters in Egypt's Liberation Square press for more mass demonstrations. And could this man provide the inspiration? The activist behind the Facebook page that set off the revolution is freed after being held for 12 days.
Inshallah, inshallah, inshallah.
By God's will, we're going to clean this country of this rubbish.
Also coming up, celebrating secession. But Southern Sudan will have to wait 5 months until it's confirmed as the world's newest country.
And I'm Shabrat Ansi in Washington. The top stories from the Americas. Was it a case of mistaken identity? 3 teenagers, at least 2 of them reported to be U.S. citizens, are killed in Mexico's Sierra Juarez. Plus, up in smoke, a fire destroys thousands of costumes made for Rio de Janeiro's carnival next month.
It is 0200 hours GMT, 4 a.m. in Egypt, where anti-government protesters are entering a 3rd week. Demonstrators are calling for more mass protests on Tuesday as they keep up the pressure on President Hosni Mubarak to quit. These are the latest pictures from Cairo's Tahrir Square, or Liberation Square, now resembling a tented encampment. Protesters vowing they will stay there until President Mubarak steps down. While opposition groups say the government has conceded little ground in landmark talks aimed at seeking an end to the crisis. The pro-democracy protests have so far lacked any single leader, but one man has emerged as a hero for many. He's the activist behind the Facebook page credited with starting the uprising. Wael Ghonim was freed on Monday after being detained for 12 days. This video, uploaded onto YouTube, claims to show his capture on January the 28th at Cairo's Liberation Square. Ghonim spoke with an Egyptian channel shortly after his release.
First of all, I send my condolences to all the people who were killed. It was a peaceful revolution. We didn't want to do any damage. Don't focus your cameras on me. I'm not a hero. The real heroes are the youth who are behind this revolution. By God's will, we're going to clean this country of this rubbish.
Well, President Mubarak has held his first meeting with his new cabinet, announcing a pay rise for government employees. Rosalind Jordan rounds up the latest developments.
Another chilly night in Tahrir Square. Thousands of demonstrators ignored the overnight curfew as they kept up their fight to remove Hosni Mubarak as president of Egypt. Surrounded by soldiers, tanks, and barbed wire, the protesters rallied each other with songs of defiance. Meantime, state television showed the 82-year-old leader in a meeting with members of his new cabinet. The message, Mubarak isn't going anywhere until his term ends in September. In a bid to peel off sympathy for the protesters, Mubarak announced nearly $1 billion in pay hikes for government workers, long a key part of his political base. Cairo itself tried another day of normal routines. Shops and banks and cafes opened for business. But so far, it's not back to normal for Egypt's famous tourist attractions, key to the country's economic health. It's frustrating businessmen and travelers alike.
This has been a dream of mine ever since I was a child, to come in here and to see the pyramids and to get this close and to be shot for no reason. They could open the gates right now. We could all go in. Nothing would happen except for Egypt would make some desperately needed money.
The protest led to the closure of the entire area. Guests aren't coming here, either to the hotels or to the pyramids. The entire area is closed. There's no more business. This has destroyed the entire country.
Perhaps even more devastating, Human Rights Watch says nearly 300 people have been killed so far during the uprising. The pall of insecurity hangs over the country. Private tennis clubs are still packed, but for millions of ordinary Egyptians, professional football matches have been canceled until further notice. Another casualty in what many are calling a time of revolution. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera.
New videos emerged of some of the worst violence in Egypt's capital last week. Here's Andrew Simmons.
We've verified the locations and the timings of these pictures. They relate to last Wednesday, when pro-Mubarak supporters attacked anti-government demonstrators. The pictures were taken at night, and I have to warn you, you may find many of these images disturbing. A crowd of anti-government protesters surrounding a pro-Mubarak supporters bus that had driven at speed into their number earlier. It's late last Wednesday night. They try to turn the vehicle over, ripping open the driver's door. There's no escape. Here, the driver's already been pulled out, and he's being lynched. From these pictures, it appears no one else was on the bus, but we can't verify that, and the fate of the driver is unknown. The frenzy of anger continues right through the night into the early hours of Thursday. Across the bridge, pro-Mubarak supporters on the move again, seemingly intent on more confrontation. But it all goes wrong. A mob of anti-government protesters swelling in numbers and showing no mercy. Each of the 9 men are attacked. Revenge for the earlier violence in which many of their numbers were killed. Hatred. While some of the men are led away, beaten as they go, another was singled out. It hasn't been possible to establish how many victims of this night lived or died. This was all filmed by a European cameraman. He says 14 minutes later, there was yet another dimension to the violence. Gunfire on the bridge aimed at anti-government protesters. A laser picks out individuals. This round finds its target. It can't be established at this stage who fired these shots, just as it isn't possible to identify victims or their attackers. The questions over last Wednesday night, Thursday morning, linger. There's yet to be an investigation into these attacks, and official figures on deaths and casualties appear inaccurate. It may never be known exactly how many people died on Wednesday and Thursday morning of last week.
The government has tried to appease the protesters, but with little success. President Mubarak only broke his silence on day 4 of the protests, announcing he'd sacked his cabinet. The next day, he named a new cabinet and appointed a vice president, Egypt's first for 30 years. After the so-called million-strong march in Cairo, Mubarak announced he wouldn't seek re-election. On day 12, the leaders of Egypt's ruling National Democratic Party resigned, including the president's son, Gamal. The next day, Vice President Omar Suleiman met opposition groups, including the banned Muslim Brotherhood. And in an attempt to diffuse anger over rising prices, the government's just raised public sector salaries and pensions by 15%, as we've heard. Now, Paul Barron is a director at Harvard University's Center for Middle Eastern Studies and joins us live from Boston. Thanks very much indeed, Paul Barron. Have any of